How dare you give Christmas with the Kranks a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes? That's just a critic score. The audience score is 38%, but that's still pretty bad. 5%? What's wrong with you people? It's a good film. Give me a high five if you like Christmas with the Kranks. Christmas with the Kranks? Yeah. Christmas with the Kranks, what do you think? Tell the mic. A mirthless movie as fresh as last year's fruitcake? I'll have you know this is the performance of Jamie Lee Curtis's life. Halloween has nothing on Christmas with the Kranks. Maybe Everything Everywhere All at Once probably does, but 5.4 out of 10 on IMDb is a bit more respectable, but we're looking at like a solid 7 out of 10 movie here, folks. My girlfriend says more like 10 out of 10, but the weird pacing, randomly thrown in plot lines, and low energy Tim Allen, it gives critics a little bit more ammo than I was hoping for, but still. So I'm coming back after a 2-month hiatus in defense of Oh, it's 2022 now? Oh, I'm coming back after a 14-month hiatus to stand up in defense of Christmas with the Kranks. The cast of this movie is wild. We got Buzz Lightyear, as if in 2004 the film industry was like, I think we need more Christmas films with Tim Allen in it. We got Laurie Strode from Halloween. We got a literal Ghostbuster.
Who's he gonna call?
There's Cheech from Cheech and Chong for some reason. Dewey from Malcolm in the Middle. This guy called Emmett Walsh, no relation to Eminem, who I originally thought was Biff from Back to the Future when they made him look really old, until I googled it and remembered that that was just Biff in makeup. I'm really sorry to this guy. I even said it to my girlfriend when we were watching it. She was like, oh yeah, it is old Biff. He was in Blade Runner though, so that's something. That guy from Stranger Things that hates women, I'm really sorry, that's how I know you. Aunt Hilda from the OG Sabrina Teenage Witch. Rickety Cricket from It's Always Sunny. Larry from the Netflix series of Unfortunate Events show, which are generally quite good if you haven't watched that. And then also this guy who is credited as Tiny Who Man in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which is an incredible credit to have on your acting resume, honestly. Oh, and also this guy called Tom Poston, who died after the film came out. This was the last movie he was ever in, and you're gonna give it a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes? That's the legacy you're leaving this poor man with? The last thing, the last thing he ever starred in was an episode of Zack and Cody, though. That is, just imagine. So Christmas with the Kranks was based off a novella called Skipping Christmas, which makes more sense, because the movie is literally about Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis wanting to skip Christmas entirely. However, there was also a movie called Surviving Christmas coming out around the same time, and it was only going to confuse people, so they called it Christmas with the Kranks instead. And on the plus side, it's a more fun name to say. Christmas with the Kranks. Say it. Christmas with the Kranks. We'll do it together. Christmas with the Kranks. You say it. I've got time. The Mirror recently posted an article about this film with the title, Worst Yuletime Film Ever Made. However, I must respectfully disagree. And disrespectfully disagree. Fuck you, Mirror. Sure, the film has downsides as any film does, but we'll go through it and we'll summarize at the end. Here's a timestamp. Just kidding. Watch the whole video. It's been a year. But despite that, there are still so many fantastic scenes in this film that I love, that make it worth the annual rewatch that my girlfriend and I have now made into a new Christmas tradition. Merry Christmas, you filthy animal, and a Happy New Year. So without further ado, let's look in to Christmas with the Kranks. While being directed by Joe Ruff, this movie was actually written and produced by Christmas movie legend Chris Columbus. There he is in Home Alone 2. I saw it last night and I was like, look, it's Chris Columbus, and my girlfriend was like, okay, good for him. But I gotta thank Chris, because let me tell you, nothing gets me in the Christmas spirit like Home Alone and Home Alone 2. It's a real shame that they didn't make a single other Home Alone film after that. He also directed the first 2 Harry Potter movies, which had such a warm and cozy vibe compared to the rest of the series, and had some really cute Christmas scenes, so it kind of counts. But this is an anti-JK Rowling channel, so fuck you, JK, fuck you. I will finally get into the movie's plot in a minute, I swear. I just need to talk about something first because it's kind of hilarious. The huge street that this movie takes place on was built just for this movie. I shit you not. Of course, movie magic extended the length of the street with like green screens and stuff, and they shot most of the interior scenes like on the sound stages and stuff, but they legit spent 12 weeks building the largest exterior set ever. It was over 700 foot long and had 16 houses, with the main 5 houses having fully built and dressed up ground floors that you could see in from the windows. For Christmas with the Kranks, a film that has 5% on Rotten Tomatoes. Oh my god. Did they really believe in it that much? Did they think this is gonna be like the next holiday classic? It is in our hearts. It is in our hearts. Also, I've just clear up the controversy here. I'm probably gonna say Rotten Tomatoes for this video. I'm aware I'm British and we say Rotten Tomatoes. I don't like that. I don't like how it sounds. Of course, later on, it got used for like other TV shows and movies and stuff. I know Christmas with the Kranks surprisingly made its budget back, but they didn't just make it and then demolish it after Christmas with the Kranks came out. But apparently in 2012, it got demolished and they built a mall on top of it because the locals weren't too happy about toxic residues. I can't imagine what these toxic residues are, but apparently the cast ingested 10 pounds of fake snow during the filming, which is just magical. It also just reminds me of like the chubby Spyro as well, but instead of saying I'm so full from cigarettes, yum, it says I'm so full of fake snow. So Christmas with the Krank starts off depressing as fuck. What a scene to have the title card open on. But I mean, who isn't depressed in December, right? You know, the older I get, the more I start to think that maybe Christmas was just like made to give people a reason to not crawl up into a ball and die while it's -5 degrees outside and pitch black at 4:30 p.m. I guess maybe like the Jesus stuff as well, but I don't really care. So Luther and his wife Nora, played by Tim Allen, and the absolute goat that is Jamie Lee Curtis, start realizing that they probably don't actually like each other as much as they used to, as their only distraction from their lacking marriage is flying the nest. Their 23-year-old daughter Blair is going away for Christmas to haunt a camera crew in a forest. That's the wrong Blair. That's the wrong one. I got the wrong film. This is going to be their first Christmas apart, as Blair is going to a Peruvian jungle to join the Peace Corps. After weirdly refusing to go into the store to get pistachios and white chocolate for Nora, even though the store is right there.
I didn't bring the umbrella.
Well, I still need it.
It's gonna have to wait.
Tim Allen hilariously gets soaked in this scene featuring Tim Allen, where Tim Allen gets soaked. I tell you, if this isn't a Tim Allen film, I don't know what is. Despite being sent in with literally 2 items on his shopping list, he comes out with just the pistachios. He said he couldn't find the white chocolate, and Nora's like, "You didn't ask the butcher?" Sorry, have you ever been in a shop before, Tim Allen? You didn't ask the butcher? For the white chocolate?
As odd as it sounds, I didn't think of asking the butcher where the chocolate was.
The fuck you say to me?
See, I could see people watching this and being like, this is such an unnecessarily slow scene, but I found it kind of funny because just Jamie Lee Curtis being like absolutely mesmerized by the fact that he didn't ask the butcher for white chocolate, and I swear Tim Allen just plays the same character in anything he's ever been in. He's just like this dry, sarcastic person in everything. He typecasted himself. So this Santa Claus, who's not played by Tim Allen, insists on him buying an umbrella because it's so rainy, and he's like, "I really think you could use an umbrella." Now remember that, because much like many other weird little plot lines coming up in this film, it's important for some reason. And then, as I mentioned, as he's like, "I don't need an umbrella," he gets absolutely soaked by all the water coming off the canopy, because I guess this film can't decide whether they want to do like slapstick comedy or a low energy, sarcastic Tim Allen muttering under his breath comedy. And that's when he turns to see an advertisement for a holiday cruise. See, you thought that him going into the store for pistachios and white chocolate had nothing to do with the storyline. Egg on your face. The next day, Tim Allen rocks up at his office and works out how much the Kranks spent on Christmas last year to the sound of this really cool typewriter song, which was originally from Who's Minding the Store with Jerry Lewis, but I kind of prefer the idea of them making it especially for Christmas with the Kranks, which you'd think would be kind of absurd though, right? Like they're making a song just for this film. You know, like this huge fucking neighborhood. Working out that they spent over $6,000 last Christmas, holy shit. He has a bright idea to spend just half of that by treating both himself and Nora to a holiday cruise to help beat that winter-fueled empty nest depression. However, that intense, sexy Tim Allen-y look he gets in his eyes makes Nora think he's about to beat those blues a little bit differently.
What are you doing? It's not even Saturday night.
And honestly, I kind of hope you're not watching this film with your family, because there's something a little bit unsettling about how horny Jamie Lee Curtis gets for Tim Allen while she starts unbuttoning in the ugly holiday vest. Now, don't get me wrong though, it's a pretty iconic vest, but there's just something about it.
Make sure you shut the curtains.
So Luther comes out with like the Hawaiian shirt and the music on the boombox, and Nora's kind of disappointed that they're not fucking on the table, but she's also totally on board with the idea until Luther tells her that she can't donate to the church like she usually does, as they are totally boycotting Christmas. I guess the Christmas wreath on their door in the next scene doesn't count. So Jamie Lee Curtis goes off in a huff, Girl Boss Gatekeep gaslights him, and then completely owns him with this line.
You're gonna let a lousy $600 stand between us and a Caribbean cruise?
No, you are.
And with his dignity barely intact, he agrees. And oh, okay, they're fucking, there we go. So I've heard people criticize the pacing of this movie. For example, why did they have to have this almost nothing problem be concluded in a completely different scene less than 60 seconds later? And the obvious reason is for that absolute killer line, of course, and so they could finally do the do. But I get what people mean. But I'll be damned if that's a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes flaw. Okay, I have seen people complain about how much this film seems to pander to like white suburban Catholic Christmas. Like, why do we even need to mention the Kranks donating to church? I'm gonna drop a knowledge bomb. I'm gonna drop a few knowledge bombs right here. Well, it's more of like a theory bomb, but if MacPat can do it, I can do it. That's because this entire film is a parody of white suburban Christmas in America, and like 90% of the people that trashed this film failed to recognize that. I'm probably getting slightly ahead of myself here, but the more I explain of the plot, the more you'll start to see what I mean. The whole movie is about an upper-class street getting upset about one family non-conforming to their perfect Christian traditions, harassing them for an entire hour of screen time, to the point that I could literally turn this movie into a horror film. In fact, here is a horror movie trailer for Christmas with the Kranks. I haven't even made it yet, and I know it's gonna work.
We're not buying a Christmas tree this year.
I gotta tell you, a lot of the neighbors are pretty upset. Christmas has always been a neighborhood thing around here, you know that.
No Christmas whatsoever. Skipping Christmas?
We're here for Frosty! I appreciate if you and everyone else around here would just respect my wishes. Nobody, not even Vic Frohmeyer, can stop us.
Oh, stop the car! What are you doing? This could be your last Christmas.
2 more days and we're out of here.
Everybody bakes cookies and swaps gifts. I guess we do it for the kids.
And what do we do Christmas Eve?
Oh, you'll think of something.
Happy holidays.
A bunch of the negative reviews for this film ridicule like how seriously the neighbors take the Kranks skipping Christmas, as if the whole film isn't like a silly parody about how serious people take Christmas. Luther and Nora are like the only normal people in this entire neighborhood as they start to realize how crazy people get over Christmas traditions. This whole street probably thinks that places like PetSmart and Foot Locker putting Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas is a war on Christmas. Buckle up, folks. The war on Christmas is real. Seriously, this film is ahead of its time. It's not until the Kranks rebel against these traditions that they start to realize how nightmarish this situation is. Film critic Steve Pulaski wrote, "Christmas with the Kranks is not jolly, whimsical, wholesome, or humorous like the typical American Christmas film, but a wretched, loathsome comedy capitalizing on the things the holiday season isn't about, such as competition, self-centeredness, cruelty, and worst of all, conformity." Now, I must ask, Steve, is expecting every Christmas film to be jolly, whimsical, wholesome, or humorous not just the same as conforming to the traditional norm of the typical American Christmas film? Riddle me that, Steve. Why is there competition and self-centeredness so abhorrent in this film, and yet in Deck the Halls, Danny and Arnie are allowed to compete on who has the most Christmas lights in their house, huh? Riddle me that, Steve. This movie is a parody. It's making fun of the conformity. How do people not see that? Or maybe I'm just grasping at straws to try and make a different video compared to the 10 other videos you've watched about Christmas with the Kranks over the last few years. And it's just a silly, goofy movie written by a team of overtly Christian writers who need Nora to donate to the church to help themselves sleep at night. The horror trail is pretty accurate though, right? Jordan Peele, I'm handing it to you. So the street starts finding out about their idea to skip Christmas as they decide to not buy a Christmas tree from these poor starving children. Look at them cry, Tim. Apparently Nora likes them big.
Mrs. Krank likes the big ones.
But it's not even Saturday night. Oh my god, please. I'm sorry guys, it's been 14 months. Word spreads quick as self-proclaimed street boss Vic Frohmeyer, I mean come on, how accurate is that? Finds out about them skipping Christmas, and the next 30 minutes or so, it's a fun string of events where the Kranks are harassed by the neighbours, Tim Allen tries to kill a bunch of carol singers, Dewey and his friends campaign for their Frosty the Snowman to join the dozens of identical snowmen donning each roof on the street and streets adjacent, like the weird cultist community they seem to be trapped in. Nora almost dies from the stress of skipping Christmas, and the press even exposes them for not decorating their house. There's like this award that they always win for like the best decorated street at Christmas, and I guess they're just bullying the Kranks into staying so they win it again. And speaking of, Luther goes over to his neighbor Walt's house to argue with him about the obvious use of his house to get the photo for the newspaper, but oh lord, does Tim Allen have egg on his face when he finds out that his wife's cancer is back? Oh, how silly you look now, Tim. Yeah, that's like one of the criticisms I agree with this film, like the tone is all over the place. They're like, oh look, Tim Allen's getting soaked with all this water, but oh, the cancer's back, oh. It just suddenly gets dropped in out of nowhere, but much like the Umbrella Santa, there's a reason, okay? Everything in this film happens for a reason, and trust me, it's not the end of the random side plots, I swear. The movie's pacing is a little slow at this point, but features some of my favorite scenes that still make me laugh on my third or fourth rewatch a week ago.
Frosty the Snowman!
Mostly because of Jamie Lee Curtis's perfect performance of a Christmas devotee terrified of non-conforming and being pressured by her neighbors.
We're not buying a Christmas tree this year.
I'm also quite a fan of Tim Allen's Botox. That was a fun scene. But it's on Christmas Eve that this movie suddenly turns from a bar humbug horror into the jolly, whimsical, typical American-style Christmas that Steve oh so wanted. Completely out of the blue whilst they're packing for the cruise, Blair calls and announces that she's coming back for Christmas. Surprise!
I'm coming home for Christmas.
What?
And Nora, bless her heart, who has been bursting at the seams this entire time at the thought of skipping Christmas, goes into manic Christmas mode to try and cover up the entire thing and throw her iconic Christmas Eve party for Blair and her new boyfriend who is coming home with her. Now this is kind of where I can see people questioning the movie's intentions. I mean, up until this point, they'd been witch hunted for not conforming to the classic Christmas traditions that this suburban cult hold up every December.
Stop the car, Nora, please. We just want Frosty.
But now they're just dropping all of their ideals at the last minute? Well, yeah, I guess so. I guess. Yeah, well done, Steve. Well done, Steve. You win this one. You win this one, Steve. This part's fun, okay? This part's fun. This includes one of the most iconic scenes in Christmas movie history. I mean it. I'm serious when I say that. Jamie Lee Curtis is on the hunt for Blair's favorite, the hickory honey ham. She rushes to the grocery store to find that there is only one left and is unfortunately beaten by another determined shopper in another classic Americans at Christmas moment. Are you happy, Steve? Are you happy now? She then whips out her checkbook to try and buy one off a young couple with a baby, implying that she's offering enough to help towards their baby's future college funds, further securing the idea that these people are fucking crazy, and I love it.
Happy holidays.
But the most heartbreaking part is when the ham escapes her in the parking lot and rolls towards the busy street, and just as she catches up to it, a giant truck flattens the ham, and every time, my girlfriend and I just fold into a ball of cringe. Before the neighborhood finds out about Blair coming home, Luther attempts to finally put up their Frosty by himself, cynically trying to hoist the giant snowman up to the roof by tying a noose around its neck. Merry Christmas! I guess that's one way to ensure the events of Frosty the Snowman don't come true to make this wild mishmash of movies any weirder. And obviously he falls off the roof because we haven't had enough of that wacky Tim Allen slapstick comedy since the rain scene at the start. Luckily, whilst he's plummeting to the ground, his leg gets wrapped up in a rope, saving this movie from turning into a Christmas tragedy. To be fair though, I don't think the neighbours would have minded that much. Frosty smashes to pieces, the neighbours rush over to rescue, and the fire brigade arrive just in time to smack each other in the face with a ladder. But then they drop this like really out-of-pocket joke in this scene.
Actually, it was a suicide attempt.
So this film is a PG, so the last half of this film is the whole neighborhood banding together to help the Kranks celebrate Christmas after all. Obviously not for the sake of Luther, it's for Blair, because everyone knows everyone on this street because white suburban America. Okay, I know this bit's like really out of the blue, but I kind of need to mention this random character that just keeps popping up. He recognizes Nora in the grocery store, but she has no idea who he is. And then he comes to the party later on, and no one there knows who he is either.
I don't know who he is.
But he does bring a hickory ham, which is kind of a girl boss moment. Now you may ask why this is important. And so was I. Please just wait until the end of the film. I swear there is a conclusion coming. So the Kranks' famous Christmas Eve party is finally away, and the local cops go to collect Blair and her new boyfriend from the airport. Of course, no one knows how to spell Enrique's name, which further cements this as our white peasant Christmas. So Malcolm in the Middle's brother on the left is trying to help the cops by using a radio that, according to IMDb, is not able to, nor allowed, to transmit on the police bands. That's a factual error. You goofed, Joe. You fucked up. You know, I'm starting to think this 5% on Rotten Tomatoes is kind of deserved. The movie has another one of those classic scenes that just like absolutely could have not happened, and the movie probably still would have been pretty much the same. Believe it or not, there was a bunch of deleted scenes from this film that you can see snippets of in the trailers and things, and part of me thinks the only reason they didn't delete this scene is because it included the Starbucks product placement. Hey, they had to pay for the giant neighborhood somehow. The cops have to delay Blair's arrival because the party's not ready yet, so they fake a robbery call, and then they actually stumble upon a real robbery.
This is going to be Enrique's first Christmas in America. I hope we make a good impression.
So they arrest the guy, presumably put him in the back of the car with Blair and Enrique, and then they take him along with them to the party, and then leave him in the car whilst they're at the party with the window wound down, despite the fact that it's freezing cold. And then Spike goes out to talk to him, and the guy baits him into letting him go into the party to go get some food in the warm with some fake story about how his kids are starving and stuff. And then, surprise, surprise, he sneaks upstairs, steals a bunch of jewelry, climbs out onto the snowy rooftop, and then Tim Allen spooks him in the same way he spooks Santa in the Santa Claus. However, in this case, Tim Allen doesn't magically become the burglar after killing him. In fact, the burglar survives and then gets smacked in the face by the umbrella Santa from the beginning. And it turns out that it's the old guy that nobody knew. And then he says he has to go and sell more umbrellas because Santa always has to work on Christmas Eve. And then he fucking flies off in his Beetle car because he's the real Santa. The film is like a fever dream, honestly. It just throws so many random plot lines and stuff into the mix that you could just not predict. And remember their neighbor who has cancer? Well, after Luther gives this half-assed speech when Blair gets home, Nora tells him off and he sulks in the other room because he actually still wants to go on the holiday after everything. But then he sees his neighbors eating alone and he spots a fully sealed hickory ham, which makes no sense because the one that Umbrella Santa gives them has already been opened. So like, I just assume someone else brought one. I guess Jamie Lee Curtis feels pretty silly for spending what I assume was at least a few $100s on her roadkill ham, considering they just have ones laying around now. So Luther takes the ham across the road, which I guess is meant to be this big gesture, like they're taking the only ham across the road, but evidently they have more than one of them. And they're kind of just like, yeah, we don't really like ham, lol. And then he's like, you know what? You might die soon. So take our tickets for the cruise. Not because I'm like a really nice guy or anything, but because we can't get a refund anymore. And now Tim Allen is redeemed. Wow, Merry Christmas. Before Umbrella Santa flies away, ending the film, Nora's like, you know what? Maybe we can skip Christmas next year. But we'll never find out what happens because although the movie did well in the box office, no one liked it, and there was never a sequel. Apart from me, I liked it, and now you should too. There's a few goofs throughout the film, like Nora telling her friends that she's skipping Christmas, and her friends are like, when do you leave? Leave where? For what? How do you know they're going on a cruise? She didn't even mention the cruise. And then these kids like dropping their game controllers and the game's still playing. Like, surely, I don't make films, but surely it's harder to get a video of a game to like mime to than to just plug in a PlayStation and let the kids play the game, right? And then the magic hickory ham, obviously, and the house like literally changes structure at one point. I don't know how that happens. I don't know. People also comment about their tans later in the movie, as if they don't just both look as white as they did when the movie started, right? There's some pretty cool transitions in a film like this.
No.
But then occasionally there's just some like random edit, like this car boot thing that made me nauseous when I last watched it. So let's be honest, this movie isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There's a lot of goofs, it's weirdly paced at times, there's a bunch of random side plots that probably didn't need to be in it. Kind of like the burglar thing, perhaps they explain it more in the book, but it's almost as if the only reason the burglar exists is so Umbrella Santa has a reason to come back at the end and hit him with the umbrella. But then it's like, why does the Umbrella Santa exist? I don't get it. However, rewind your minds back to the start. This video is in defense of Christmas with the Kranks, not against it. I am better than the Rotten Tomatoes reviewers who gave it 5%. How dare you? I like this movie. It makes me feel Christmassy. It has some good funny moments. Jamie Lee Curtis is honestly great in this film. I love how over the top it is and just like how nightmarish it gets with like the carolers surrounding their house and like the whole street plotting against them. The soundtrack's pretty good too, and unlike pretty much everything else with this film, it was well received. All I'm gonna say is maybe don't go into a mid-2000s Christmas movie starring Tim Allen and Dan Aykrod expecting something as good as Elf or Home Alone, because with Christmas with the Kranks, you might not get it, but you will leave somewhat satisfied by Jamie Lee Curtis running through a parking lot after a hickory honey ham and Tim Allen getting Botox. Thanks for watching. My name's been Brody, otherwise known as KnockoutWolf. It's good to be back after 14 months. I'm hopefully gonna not make it that long of a gap next time. If you've been wondering what I've been doing for the last 14 months, I might make a video about that. I'm keeping my secrets, but long story short, you can catch me on Twitch like 2 to 4 times a week. I didn't even know there was a pizza underneath here. Oh my god! What have you monsters created? This is how many chips they put on this pizza. I spent £6 just on the chips that they put on the pizza. Oh my god. You guys are heathens. You are heathens. And I opened the door dressed like this. My band also released our debut album. That was pretty cool. We got signed as well. Play a lot of GTA roleplay now, and I upload some like highlight videos and stuff here.
Oh god, it's pissing everywhere.
I got a Gengar Build-A-Bear. I'm 24. Merry Christmas, everybody! Except for you, Christmas deniers. Happy holidays, motherfucker.